Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to be showing you another Temu purchase, and that is auxiliary car lights. Let's get started. These were less than $5 on Temu, and I thought they'd be worth the risk. Basically, you have 3 wires. The black will go to ground, which I've extended with these alligator clamps. The trick here is to clamp the negative onto the bundle of wires. That way there's absolutely no risk that you could do a short here. But if we connect the yellow, you have a turn indicator, right? And if you go to the red, you have driving lights. Now the intention with these, according to the Temu pictures, is you would have this connected up and you would have it shining into your headlight reflector. That way, if you're not running with your headlights on, if you just have driving lights on, this would kind of give you a bluish, whitish ambient glow in your headlight. To me, it's much easier to just have your goddamn headlights on. So I'll show you what I'll be doing with them. But you can see I'm providing it 12 volts. There's the 12 volt battery, by the way. I'm going to keep the white LED still connected, but then I'm going to power on the turn signal. And you can see the turn signal runs. You make your turn signal disengages, and the white driving light comes back on. By that I mean it does not reset and do this strobing thing. Some states will have laws against strobing lights. With this, you're only going to get the initial strobing effect when you first start your car. So you aren't even going to be out of your parking spot, let alone the parking lot, before your light stops twitching. But you have I will call it auxiliary lighting. I'll call it lighting to be seen, not lighting to see. The distinction being like a auxiliary fog light or auxiliary driving light would be something in addition to your headlights that you could use with your headlights or instead of your headlights that would illuminate the road in front of you. This is clearly not going to do that. But it is going to give you lighting for people to see you. And you may have seen some of my dash cam videos. I am deathly afraid of the other drivers around me and how carelessly they operate their 70-mile-an-hour, 5,000-pound full of liquid explosive dinosaur land missiles. But all that to say, this is something that I can do to draw a little bit more attention as an introvert. That's something I enjoy, right? To the front of my car, and I can also get the added benefit of having an additional turn signal. With this, you can see there's some blue plastic here. It's covering up the other side of double-sided tape. So this is self-adhesive, and it can be cut to whatever length you want. So as long as you keep the wire on this side, if you only want it to be 7 inches, 6 inches long, you could cut it here. This now is scrappable, but this section will continue to work in the same fashion, but they give you, what are we looking at? That's a foot. So they give you just shy of 2 feet worth of flexible, bendable, rotatable, waterproof, apparently. We'll be testing that. LED lighting that you can put on literally any car. The only issue with this is going to be where you're going to put it and how you're going to wire it. So that's something you're going to have to figure out. But underneath the fuse box in my 2018 Subaru Forester are fuses for the driving light, which I can connect the white light into. And there's a fuse for the left and right turn signals. So I'm squared away. I just had to run a little bit of wiring to those individual fuses. Pretty sure that's all we have for now. Probably just going to go ahead and do a hard cut to having it mounted into the car. But before we do that, I'm going to show you where I plan on putting it and why I plan on putting it there. All right, so we're back out to the car, and I wanted to show you guys. They are labeled, so you have R for right, L for left, and that would be in orientation to you, the driver. So this would be the right-hand side, the passenger side of the car. Right now it's on, and it's not super bright, but that's okay. And again, it'll transition over to your turn signal. So the way I see it is I always have my headlights on regardless of the weather. The Subaru allows for the automatic headlight, so as soon as the ignition is on, they turn on. As soon as the ignition is off, they stay on until I pull the key out of the ignition, which is something I don't necessarily care for, but basically it's a set it and forget it kind of thing. And then the turn signals are going to be right here. So the nose is set up in a way where you have a hollow cavity here and a hollow cavity there. You have your lights top side. So the idea is I'm going to not only have auxiliary lighting, but I'm going to put that auxiliary lighting where it's always dark, which will make it stand out more. In addition to, instead of putting the lighting around the headlight, which is what the documentation suggests you should do, I'm now going to give me double the effective area of lighting. So instead of making this brighter or having this be framed in with the white light and then the yellow during a turn signal, it's going to be down here. And when I have the headlight on, I have the headlight, and then a white light strip down here. So I have 3 points of contact. They're more likely to see one of 3 lights versus 2, right? So I'm getting 50% more light there. And the same thing stands with the turn signal. If the turn signal is here and the turn signal is there, I'm now going to have a second, well, I guess a third turn signal on the front of the car, which is going to draw more attention in than just wrapping it around the existing stuff. So I'm getting more square footage, I suppose, would be the thought process behind that. God, I think too much. Anyways, that's what we're going to be doing. And let me go ahead and cut. I'm going to put this light strip down there, and we're going to compare it from this to this. Now, of course, I do not have it adhered. I just have it crushed in there. But it's going to be lighting up a cavity that otherwise would be dark. It not only shines forward, but it fills in this cavity, and it also shines back behind. So you can see it's lighting my fingers there, which means the entirety of the engine bay, including all these vents and all, is going to have some amount of light, and that some amount is substantially more than it has without this lighting. So I mean, I think these were less than $5 for 2 of them. It already comes pre-programmed. You'll notice I'm not running it through some kind of a programmer or auxiliary box of any kind that has to be hooked up to an amp or app or anything like that. So relatively simple to put in. I like it down low because I feel like this scoop goes down, and that's going to also keep that more in the dark, which is going to make the admittedly dim light as bright as it possibly can be. And again, it's going to give you a triangle effect for your lighting for both your driving light headlight as well as your turn signals, which will look something like... You're not going to stay, are you? Like that. Nice. And again, both of those will be going. They'll probably be going at different rates. Hello, Bagheera. Who's your good buddy? Who's your good buddy? Scritches. So you will have both of those going, and when you have this one wired in, again, it's a set of 2, the white will stay on this side, further giving you a stronger profile to stand out in traffic, in addition to having this blink until it's done, and then it'll switch back to the non-strobing white. I, for the purposes of this demonstration, had to unplug it, but it will return back to this, and you'll have a solid white bar down here. that is offset both left, right, as well as lower than your existing lighting, just in time for winter. So let me go ahead and get as much damage done as I can. Hopefully I can get it done before the sun sets. With some water and rubbing alcohol, I cleaned out inside there. Doesn't draw too much attention, especially since when you stand next to the car, you're not going to see it. But sitting down here on the ground doesn't look too terrible. Have this wired up to not burst into flame. But when I first start the car, looks pretty good. Let's do it again. And at night, when this is going to be most effective and most necessary, because if you can't see a big green car with headlights, but anyways, this is going to light up that entire cavity, a little bit shining down, but probably not enough of a difference to make a difference. And then, eeny, meeny, miny, this one. Cool. Returns to lit. Where was the other one? It was this one. And if I can do this one-handed, stand by. So hazards will be, if I can time it exactly right, hazards will draw more attention. Turn signal will draw more attention, especially since now I'm contrasting it against this staying white and this one flashing. Not sure why that's strobing. I imagine the battery and or my very weak test wiring here is not so great. But anywho, put that on there. It's going to contrast against the white. So kind of getting two benefits here. One, the car is going to be brighter all around, but also for turn signals, there's going to be two turn signals and a higher contrast between them. And this one is located up top when the sun is usually shining down into it, or, into it from the front or into it from the top. This one's going to be in the dark. So while it is not bright, it is going to be a little bit more attention grabby, being that this part of the car can never be in the sunshine. It's always going to be hidden under this bumper, hidden under this, I added this as well, a bull nose, I think, whatever it is. But that's always permanently going to be in the shadows, and now it kind of draws in quite nicely, I think. So that's what we have right now. Let me go ahead and see if I can't get them actually wired. And either way, if I do or I don't, I will just try rolling in a nighttime video of this as well. I think that's where we're going to get the best bang for the buck. The other thing you'll notice, there is a gap right here and right here. This is a very sharp curve, so it did turn with that pretty well, and the adhesive is actually very good. It is not coming up. The whole bumper is moving before that adhesive gives. So what I would recommend is they were in a coil this way, right? For shipping, takes up less space. So I just rolled it through my fingers, and in the same bin that was clockwise, I rolled it counterclockwise to level it off. And as I was getting into these corners, I did a 180-degree bend to try and break that memory and get them to stay in place. So far, it seems to be holding pretty well. I'm really liking it. Let's see what I can do, and I'll at least show you guys at nighttime. I gave it crap for not being bright. It's actually lighting up quite well. Oh, looks great looking at it, of course, but I mean, that pod is 10 feet away. Let's see. Let's try that again. So that garage, I mean, that door is 8-10 feet tall. So it's lighting all the way up that garage to some degree. Much better than it was, clearly. Can I get this to stay? I don't have it wired up officially yet. It's just directly on the positive terminal of the battery. Okay. I'm impressed. Wow. So, I mean, probably a good ways. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. And let me grab this real quick. Put you right there. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, so everything is wired up. Everything is working fine. I'm going to show you 3 different tests, and we're going to start with the first one. What a great way to start. Right, and through the science of keeping a blanket in my car, and through the science of putting the blanket back in my car, for less than $5 and less than an hour to stick them and wire them, I would say it's an easy upgrade. So here's something I choose to call neat too. You are now on top of the hood of my car. You can see illuminating up to the second story window. That white light is the light from the auxiliary lighting I just put in. When I do turn signal right, I'm lighting up the entire side of that barn. You can see the white light kick back on after the turn signal. Now left. the white light kick back on. And hazards, and the white light kick back on. So again, pay attention to how much of the building is illuminated right now. I'm going to go to hazards, which will turn on the yellow lights and therefore turn off the white light. And then you'll see a short delay between no lights and then the auxiliary white lighting coming on right now. So it actually puts out a pretty decent amount of light, and that light is spread out. Instead of it being directional, it's more ambient. So especially here coming into the winter snow, I imagine I'm going to be lighting up the street a little bit better, and more importantly, lighting up myself a little bit better. I got my driver's license in Anchorage, Alaska. I cannot say the same for the people around me. So while I know how to drive in the snow, most around me don't, as observed by the 12 years I've been in Ohio. So all that to say, the more attention you can bring to yourself operating a 70 mile per hour, 4,000 pound full of liquid explosive dinosaur land missile, the less likely you are to run into issues. For the price of less than $5, the install of less than 30 minutes after an hour of troubleshooting, I would say that this is absolutely worth the upgrade, worth the time, worth the price. Benefit of giving you auxiliary driving lights. If my headlights were to go out, they are also wired so when my high beams are on, they continue to be on. Added safety with pedestrians and other vehicles, especially here coming into the winter. And you have some ambient light, you have some added square footage for your turn signal, and your driving light draws attention to your vehicle, makes your vehicle look a little more three-dimensional. Instead of having a left and a right light, you have a left, a right, and a bottom light. So I would say definitely worth your time. Possibly you agree. At this point, the only thing left to show you is how I wired it in. I can show you how I did it on a Subaru. It is going to vary for other makes and models, but I will show you the basics of how I troubleshot it, how I wired it in, and you can do this to yours and yours. And now for the promised wiring. Basically what I did is behind the headlight assembly on both sides of the car, it'll be right there and right here, are wiring harnesses, and they're going to be how the power gets to the various lighting and electronics up front. So basically all I did is I would turn on the turn signal, I would poke around with the wire coming from that LED auxiliary lighting until it would start strobing. Then I would go back into the car and turn off the turn signal and make sure that the lighting was now not flashing. You can use a voltmeter if you have one. This is a way to do it without using a voltmeter. Once I did that, you can see there's a clip on the bottom of the connector right here that you're going to push upwards towards the sky, and that's going to allow it to release. And I stripped probably an inch, a half inch of the wire, and I would shove it into the pin that I needed. And the reason it's long is the connector has to be able to fit back into place without pulling that wire out of the fitting. So about an inch. You will want to make sure that no strands of that wire are touching anywhere else. So you're going to want to spin it in your fingers and get it nice and tight, and then go ahead and put it into the correct pin. On the Subaru, it's going to be the bottom left for the driver's side as you're looking at the cabin, and then it should be the bottom right on the passenger side. The headlight, I wired both of them together. So the black and the white for my wiring ended up both being the white running light, and I have that ran into the connector going to my low beam. Since both of them are connected to the same low beam, I don't have to have 4 wires going places. I only have 3. And this is a temporary thing. I have it in the cabin right now, actually. It's essentially conduit like this. And I'm going to better route that stuff. You don't want this getting pinched off. You don't want it grounding out. And you don't want it flapping around in the wind. So I'm going to tighten all that up here shortly. But you'll notice too, right here is a screw that is part of the infrastructure. It doesn't really do anything, but it is there from Subaru stock, and that is a grounding point. So all the wiring goes to ground here. You give it your positives wherever your wiring harness allows, and you're in business. So relatively simple. It's just going to take you a little bit of pulling and prying and figuring out which one is which. What I did is right here is the turn signal. So I know I have a black and white, and a red and green wire. The red and green ended up being the turn signal on mine. So I just followed it back, found where the pin is, and pushed the wire into place.